looming national minimum wage hike is raising unemployment concerns. That's according to youth development agency Afrika Tikkun Services. It claims that increasing the minimum wage could have unintended consequences, negatively impacting the fight against job losses. The agency says it's important to find a balance between fair wages and creating employment. Let's discuss their views further now. I'm joined by Onyi Nwaneri from Afrika Tikkun Services. She's, of course, the CEO there. Onyi, good afternoon. Welcome to today, and thank you very much for your time. Why do you believe or say that hiking the national minimum wage in 2024 would negatively impact employment?
Thank you for having me. As Afrika Tikkun Services, our vision is to enable young people become economically empowered. That means the problem we want to solve is unemployment, in particular youth unemployment. As we all know, South Africa has the highest youth unemployment rate in the world. It also has the highest inequality rates in the world as well. The challenge here is that we're not just dealing with the challenge of inequality, which is what national minimum wage is trying to look at, the concept of a living wage, and trying to match that wage into to as close as inflation as possible. But we have a problem of high unemployment, in particular youth unemployment, coupled with high poverty that then leads to high inequality. And therefore, we're saying that we need to look at a balancing act, that as we're trying to solve inequality through the national minimum wage, we should also recognize the impact on unemployment, because that affects the employers of labor. And majority of the people that employ labor are already under a lot of pressure. So any more pressure will cause people like the small, medium enterprises not to be able to create jobs at all. Yet we say the small, medium enterprises has the highest potential to create jobs.
Are you saying a higher national minimum wage for those small businesses would lead to higher labor costs?
No, absolutely. So I can talk as out of experience as Afrika Tikkun Services. This year we saw a lot of small, medium enterprises struggle under the burden of higher inflation. Not just high inflation, high interest rates that the Reserve Bank has been trying to use to fight inflation. They're struggling under the burden, still trying to recover from COVID-19 and the effects on their businesses, struggling with blackouts and trying to make businesses work through alternative sources of energy that raises the cost of doing business. And we know for a fact that majority of small to medium enterprises are struggling to not just stay alive, not to talk of trying to give other people jobs. And yet we say they are job creators. So our conversation is really to suggest that as we talk about the national minimum wage and against the context of broad-based Black economic empowerment, therefore we need to look at how do we support small, medium enterprises to be able to afford those labor costs and to be able to create wealth that will enable them to then create jobs within those small, medium enterprises.
Onyi, how do you strike a balance? You've highlighted the fact that small and medium-sized businesses, particularly in your experience as Afrika Tikkun Services, are struggling really to keep up doing business because of high interest rates and other high cost, input costs in their businesses. But ordinary people are also struggling with high cost of living. If we don't increase the national minimum wage, how can you address that? Where is that balance? How do you strike it? What are your thoughts?
So the way we see it, we see solutions in two ways. One is productivity. How do business make money? Business make money in two ways. Yes, there's an economic system, an ecosystem that supports business to make money. But at the core of a business is people. We're also struggling from a productivity point of view as a country. Productivity SA brought out stats to say that South Africa also has low productivity rates in the country. So I think the first suggestion from us is to focus on rewarding employees' productivity. How do we encourage South African citizens to become more productive? Because we know more productive employees enable companies to create wealth, and the more wealth that is created, more jobs will be created and sustain. That's one. Secondly, is to come up with mechanisms that enable more money in the hands of few. And I use an example. We run a number of projects, especially in the rural areas, where young people, who would never, ever access any economic opportunity if no money is put in their hands. So how about a solution that enables more people to access wealth or opportunities to earn income, and whether it is through cooperatives or through the National Youth Service that perhaps mediates a national minimum wage in order to put more money in the hands of people. So at the end of the day, what we are saying is that it's not just about one part of the economy winning, it's about everybody winning. It's about young people who have the highest victims of unemployment in the country, beginning to see some form of access to the economy without it being impacted by national minimum wage. And just to finish on this, we know for a fact that every time a national minimum wage is increased, what we see is employment programs reduced. So instead of creating 1,000 employment, we see employment reducing to 500 because now they have to adjust to the national minimum wage. Less jobs are created. So the more we can balance to make sure that those who have the ability to create jobs have the ability to access employees who are productive, but then can create more wealth to keep sustaining those jobs.
Very briefly, Onyi, are you saying there should be no increase to the national minimum wage in 2024?
We are saying it's a balancing act. We are saying two things. One is that there should be a consideration of the fact that businesses have struggled in the same way that individuals have. And perhaps certain businesses should be moderated in terms of how the national minimum wage is applied. And perhaps look at incentivizing productivity rather than an outright increase of national minimum wage, especially for 2024.
Onyi Nwaneri, thank you very much. She's the CEO of Afrika Tikkun Services. Just saying that please, when you consider the new national minimum wage for 2024, you need to balance between issues of helping small and medium businesses, especially around productivity, and also maybe moderate that national minimum wage for that kind of sector.